Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Who is it? Larry the Cable Guy? Get her done. Is it Larry the Cable Guy who says that?
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I believe
I believe they are immortal.
Get done.
I think it's get.
Origin.
To be accurate, it's get.
It is get. It's hyphenated. Get hyphen done. It's a statement of boisterous completion or encouraging another person to get something done, completed, or finished. It can be used at random times, such as traffic jams, sports events, and, oh yes, Your favorite, I'm sure, NASCAR. Its origins are thought by some to be sexual, which it does work well in that context, but not limited to that. In the last 2 years, Get Her Done has debuted in many social and ethnic settings, thus expanding its borders beyond redneckdom to actual cultural diversity.
I don't think Larry the Cable Guy wrote that definition.
No, he didn't. Actually, the second definition is Get Her Done. The expression that Larry the Cable Guy uses means to engage in coitus, to get drunk, to get ripped, etc. It basically works for anything of that sort.
Get her done.
Yep. Get her done. And that's welcome to the next reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson. Hello, Andrew.
Chortling away.
Can I tell you something? So, I meet with my trainer. I have a trainer, Jamie. Shout out to Jamie. I don't. It's tough having this kind of relationship with Jamie because he sees me at my worst, and when I'm at my worst, I don't like him very much. But I have a feeling he's a fairly congenial guy. He's a nice guy, and he actually, I was with him getting trained earlier this week, and he said he'd actually had listened to the show.
Wow.
Which is a little bit strange. It's that sort of the worlds collide kind of a thing.
Right.
But at one point he said he agreed with me on something, but he didn't actually listen to the whole show. He's talking about Star Trek. He said he actually agreed with our assessment of Star Trek, which is good because he's a nerd. The first thing he taught me ever in my meetings with him, he had to teach me how to run because I am that deficient. Physically, that he had to teach me how to run. And what he said, and this I knew it was meant to be. I knew that this complete jerk for what he does to me each week would be important to me in my life. He said, he watches me walk around the track and he says, okay, so when old Spock is talking to young Spock or a young Scotty and giving him the equation for transwarp beaming, and he says, imagine, space is the thing that's moving.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want you to think about when you're running.
Wow. And
I knew right then. It made a connection. I've never run the same way. B, I've never seen Star Trek in the same light either. Because now it was that impactful of a moment.
The big question is, have you gone into hyperspace when you run?
I think that I'm not sure because so many of my weekly sessions with Jamie, I don't actually remember. I just have blacked out.
So for all you know, we're talking 10 years ago.
We do. Well, we go for the 3-day burn, right? If he says, if you can still use your body after 3 days, then I haven't done my job right. So it has to hurt to the point where I can't move or drive or anything for 3 days. And so that's where we are. We met on Monday and I'm just barely standing up right now.
Wow.
But he also said something else of our movie that I told him the movie we were doing tonight, and he said something that I thought was amusing and spot on, and I'm going to share it with you now. This Paul Giamatti is in this movie we're talking about tonight.
That's right.
And he says of Paul Giamatti, which I thought was quite astute, Jamie says, when actors, they go to this acting school, and I'm sure this comes up at some point, where they have to go to a class and they have to practice, delivering their lines while they're eating. I'll bet Paul Giamatti was really good at that.
I guess that's a good thing.
Right? You go, Giamatti, with your mouth full.
That's like a totally different kind of acting school.
Right.
It's like, remember in Vegas Vacation?
Right.
When they're trying to make their money back and they don't have enough, so they go to like the really, really chintzy casino where instead of roulette and poker and blackjack, they're playing, what number is in my head? And just the most inane games. That's
exactly it.
That's Paul Giamatti's acting school.
He's that
in
good.
The best way.
In the best way. Paul, now you're going to put 18 marbles in your mouth. Go, Horatio, go. You can find out more about us at thenextreel.com. We invite you to go there and check out the site, listen to past shows. We got lots of them. We're, what are we on? 84, episode 84 this week. Is that true?
It is very true.
We're very excited about episode 84 of our continuing series of movies about magic made in 2006.
Yeah, it's morphed a little bit as we've gone from last week to this week. We've modified some things, but it's still very exciting. And so we invite you to head over there. You can head over to facebook.com/thenextreel or twitter.com/thenextreel, and you can keep up with us and movie talk over there. But Facebook is really where things are, where any discussion is happening. And we've got the good and kindly, you may know him from hit podcasts such as The Next Reel, The Film Board. Steve Sarmento posts regularly with us over on Facebook. And so we deeply thank him for joining the club over there. And I believe while we're talking about that, we should mention that there is a film board conversation this Saturday night.
How excited are you about this movie for the weekend?
I feel like I'm more excited about this movie than I have been about a good number of our past movies. Not to say that I haven't been excited, but this one there's something about it that just really, really gets me excited.
I know, and I really worry about that.
I do too.
Absolutely, because every single movie we've done has been mediocre to lame.
Yeah.
That we've gotten together as a group. And so this weekend, the film board coming up Saturday night, we're going to be doing Now You See Me, the new Mark Zuckerberg film. And we're very excited to do this. This is a magic heist movie.
Yeah, and it's our crossover from our Magician series to our Heist series.
Yes.
So it's very exciting.
Very appropriately that they put this movie right in the middle of our series.
Almost, yeah. It's not quite perfectly in the middle of the two, but
could be
still
better.
Yeah, we could have
worked that out.
Thanks a lot, whoever's releasing Now You See Me.
Zuckerberg. Okay, so that is, I think, did I miss anything? I've been all over the place.
iTunes.
Oh, yeah, you should go there. You can subscribe to the show. By far, you can go to thenextreel.com. You can find the RSS feed and a link to the iTunes podcast directory. So whatever your podcast tool of choice, I'm a Downcast user, for example. What are you? Are you using Downcast?
I am using Downcast now.
You can. It's a handy tool. Big shout out to Downcast. You can, if you're a Downcast user, if you are a Apple's podcast user, if you just subscribe in iTunes, you can find the show any number of different ways from the website. But if you go to the iTunes store and you happen to search for us and visit our iTunes page, leave us a kindly review and drop 5 of your spare stars. That helps other people discover the show, and it's a very nice thing to do. It will deliver unto you great karma.
Absolutely. It's a karma machine in there.
It's a karma machine. It's just going like gangbusters.
Yep. Get her done.
Get her done. So shall we talk trailers?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty well. You do yours first because it's.
I'm pretty excited about it. I know you're not.
I know you are
not quite as excited, but it's a film directed by a buddy of mine here in Phoenix called Speak No Evil. It actually just premiered this past weekend here.
That's
in
an
Phoenix.
Ironic title.
Considering how evil the film is.
Yeah, it doesn't look sweet.
It's a horror film. Rose directed it. He's a great director. He really loves playing around in the horror genre and does some pretty creepy stuff. They premiered it this past weekend, and then it played again at the Phoenix Comic-Con this weekend, which was a wonderful time. And they are slowly going to be doing a few more premieres around the country, and then they are going to be opening it on a new distribution site that they're starting up called mindplate.tv. And so people can go to Mindplate and watch short films. They can watch features like this, all sorts of stuff. I think it's going to be premiering on Mindplate shortly after its final release. Let's see, it's premiering this Thursday night, so actually it will have passed in LA, I guess. And then it's going to be up in Detroit Friday, June 7th. And then it'll be at the Falls Horror Fest in Niagara Falls. If any of you are around there, June 8th and 9th, it's going to be playing there. And then shortly after that, it'll be up on Mindplate. And you can watch it right there on, you can download it and watch it on their screen or whatever you want to do.
That's very cool. It's
Yeah,
not. It looks pretty scary.
It's a creepy trailer. Talking to Rose, it's a and his lovely wife Candace, who produced it with him. They say it's not just like a slasher horror film. I mean, there's definitely blood in the trailer. It really plays that up. But they say it's a lot more of the kind of older school, almost a PG-13 type of horror that's really more about the jumps and making you just jump out of your seat. So, maybe it's a good date movie.
That's not the trailer.
What
you just described is not that trailer.
That's right.
That what I just saw was full on like Paranormal Activity. What was the Evil Dead?
Right.
There was a lot of blood and mouth blood, an enormous amount of mouth blood and chewing blood.
It is a little creepy. It's about a single mother who's trying to fight to protect her daughter from some demonically possessed children and a town gone mad. Looks pretty creepy.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, to each his own. I'm not what I've become less of that guy.
That's okay.
And so that's why my trailer this week is absolutely not a horror movie. In fact, it's everything but.
Absolutely not.
It is everything but. I'm talking about Time, which is a Richard Curtis written and directed. It's a wee bit of a British love story in the vein of, Notting Hill, Love Actually, and appropriately so because Richard Curtis also wrote and directed those films. So if you're into, he did Pirate Radio too. That was good. He wrote? He's been mostly a writer, so this is kind of a transition. He wrote all the Bridget Jones things. Anyhow, this is About Time. It's fantastic. It's about a young British guy, Tim, who discovers that his family secret is that he can, if he goes into a closet and clenches his fist real tight, he can travel through time. And so it's one of these wonderful romantic comedies in which the protagonist can keep redoing stuff that he screws up. And I find these stories absolutely charming, even though they feel like they came right out of the bottom of a cereal box. I love them, and that's my dirty secret of the week.
You know what I have to say is
What?
It's about time that Rachel McAdams got herself in another time-traveling romance movie.
I wasn't going to say anything about that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. She's, that Rachel McAdams? I like her, too.
Yeah, she's pretty fantastic.
She's pretty fantastic. It's funny. She was in, did you see The Lucky Ones?
I didn't.
That was another Neil Berger. One of the few other Neil Berger films that we that we're going to be talking about, one of his tonight. And so, she was great in that too. Anyway, I'm very much looking forward to this. Comes out November 8th, 2013. It is a comedy drama sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
A rom-com time. Rom-time-com? No, there's nothing there.
You tried.
I did. Noble
It's close.
effort.
Yeah.
So those are the trailers for the week. You can check out the trailers and over on the in the show notes at thenextreel.com/TNR/The Illusionist. The Illusionist, actually. So just head over to the Next Reel. You can catch up with the detailed show notes and links to everything we talk about in this episode. I should add, last week we talked about a new list, our favorite movies about people on their own.
Right, yeah. How is that coming along?
Well, I started the list, and you'll see in our Evernote note, I started a list, and I got the Castaway, I Am Legend,
there you go,
The Wall, which we talked about last week. Haven't even seen it yet, but it's on the list. I put Into the Wild on there.
Okay.
Life of Pi.
Kind of alone.
Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, without spoiling anything.
Right, exactly. I put Touching the Void on there. And Open Water.
Ooh.
Right. But what was there was one other you mentioned that I had not put on there yet. I can't remember what it was. Was it the 127 Hours or?
Well, that's a good one, but that's not what I said. I don't know.
Oh. So I'll add 127 hours.
Two on that one.
Okay, so I'll get that list up in the lists section of the site, so you can join. But if anybody has any other suggestions of great movies about people stranded or otherwise shipwrecked on their own, I'm not adding Robinson Crusoe. Then please shoot them our way. All right, let's talk about this movie.
Absolutely. The Illusionist. This was a strangely popular year for stage magician films.
What is up with that?
I don't know. I mean, I know that there's these weird cycles in Hollywood where they end up having two of the virtually same film come out at the same time, like Deep Impact and Armageddon. Or this year we've got Olympus Has Fallen and White House Down. It's strange. It's these weird little things in Hollywood, and oddly enough, there were three in 2006. So it'll be
2006. And you know what I find most interesting about that? That here we are having three movies about stage magicians that end up being remarkably different movies.
Yeah.
And that surprised me. My memory of The Illusionist was that it was it ended up being a knockoff of The Prestige, because I really liked The Prestige as much as I did. Watching this movie again this week, I sort of rediscovered a love for it, but not the same things that I remember loving about it. It happened in roughly the same time period. Kind of the same world that they try to capture in spite of being different countries, and yet different. It's a movie about different things, and I found it fascinating.
Yeah, it was a very interesting difference between the two films that I think worked in their favor, and that's talking about films that they feel like Hollywood, somebody left one on the photocopier and somebody took it and went to make their own version of that,
right,
like the ones that I just mentioned. These ones feel like, yes, they all deal in the world of stage magicians, but they definitely feel different. The Prestige was very much a film about this rivalry between these two men, magicians, and their journey to be the best that there was. This one is really just kind of a love story about a man who finds his true love when he's young, and even though they're separated by social class, they when they're older, we come back to them later in life, he finds a way to bring them together. It's very much more of a love story, kind of a mystery love story, than The Prestige was.
That's exactly what I was thinking. The Prestige, in so far as it is much more sort of hardcore rooted in magic, the magic in The Illusionist ends up being a setting. More than anything else, although the magic in the movies is fascinating. The more you kind of dig into it, and we'll talk more about kind of the use of CG versus the use of practical magic in the film. They made some interesting choices. I don't necessarily think to the credit of the film, but in any case, what stands out to you in this film as its real strengths as you're watching it again? This is we should say this was the magic movie, written and directed by Neil Berger, based on the book, based on the short story Eisenheim the Illusionist, written by Stephen Milhauser, and it's in the collection. It's in a collection of short stories that Barnum. The link's in the show notes.
The Barnum Museum.
Barnum Museum, yeah.
And it's on our website as well.
It's on the website as well. Edward Norton, Paul Giamatti, Jessica Biel, and oh my goodness,
Rufus Sewell.
Rufus Sewell, yes. So those are the key players. What stands out to you as particularly strong in this film?
First of all, I think the thing that struck me the most rewatching this film was the incredibly gorgeous cinematography by Dick Pope. It's just a sumptuous film. It feels just, there's something almost tangible about the way the film looks. I couldn't get enough of looking at this film in every frame. It was just like a work of art.
Okay, you got to talk more about that. What exactly was it about every frame that you found really appealing? Because I am very torn on this point.
Interesting. It was the palette that they chose to use, the color palette, that gave it this feel that it almost had kind of this earthy, sepia quality to it that just felt like it was a distant memory. And not just that, but also the way that they used irises throughout the film and just old film school techniques that really just, in a way, it reminded me a lot of The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. The way that they used these kind of old school tools to really enhance the cinematography and give it this, I want to say almost an otherworldliness, but it's really just makes me feel like I really kind of stepped back and I'm watching these memories of the past. And I think that's why I am so drawn to the cinematography in this film.
I'll tell you why I'm torn, and then you can get back to your review here. I am torn because I think for me they went sort of a bridge too far on the kind of film decay look of it. You know, when it feels to me very much like I just walked into a tent for a silent film review. You know, I mean, it's that every frame. I totally agree with you. I think the sepia kind of toning is luscious. I think it does a great thing for the film in general, but then they end up doing this weird sort of the iris sort of vignetting that shows up more intensely, I think, in the flashback segments than but it's throughout the entire film is this vignetting that is, to me, it comes off as dizzying, and I think that's a choice that I think it's a distracting choice from a consistent watch of the film. I had trouble with that. But anyway, so go ahead.
No, I can see how one would see that. It is very consistent and it's in your face. You know, I've always been a fan of filmmakers who aren't afraid to really put the filmmaking techniques in your face, much like watching Hot Fuzz or any of those sorts of films where it's just like the camera moves, the way that everything is alive as far as the movement within the camera, the way that the actors and the camera relationships are, it all feels very live, and it's constantly reminding me that I'm watching a movie. But there's something really invigorating about that gives the film a different energy that I never find distracting. And in this film, I definitely was aware that it was happening, that the irising was going on and the vignetting and just kind of this almost this technique used to make it look like old film. I never found it distracting. It was one of those techniques that I acknowledged, and I was very excited that they were doing it, and I just kind of saw past it and was just more and more excited every time it happened. All right.
I mean, so. I absolutely see that, and like I said, for me, it was just a little bit far. Sure. I think what were the Wyatt Earp movies? There was Wyatt Earp, and what was the other one? Tombstone. I mean, I think one of those had this similar effect. Maybe it was Wyatt Earp, and it was that same thing. It was like, this is just too old-fashioned for me.
Yeah.
I just found myself thinking there's something wrong with the display. Like I'm getting burn-in the corners or something. It was too much. So anyhow.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice that the director chose to make with his film that some people are going to like, some people aren't going to like, and I completely acknowledge that. It's again, it's something that works for me. So you know, it's anytime any director makes choices like that with their film, where they're really putting their technique right out in front for you to notice. I mean, it could be something that backfires for them.
Yeah,
and so they have to acknowledge that when they're making those choices.
Truth.
So.
Truth.
And, you know, Dick Pope was nominated for an Oscar for his work in this. He lost out to Guillermo Navarro, who won for Pan's Labyrinth, one of your all-time favorites.
You're doing that sarcasm thing again.
It looks great.
Yeah, it did. It looked great, except for the content.
Dick Pope, we've talked about before. He did Dark City.
Yes. No, that's true. That is very... no, you're right. That's high points for me.
Yeah.
And that, you know, interesting comparison too, because Dark City is another one that has that as you say, it sort of wears its cinematography on its sleeves. Lots of kind of filmmaking techniques very much on display.
Yeah.
In that film.
And perhaps it works well in a film like that because of the sci-fi nature of the film. It may come across as less in your face, whereas a period piece, it is something that may come across as a little distracting. Now, again, maybe it worked for me because of this feel of the old techniques that they were applying to the film. That worked really well, as opposed to if it was Edgar Wright who was directing this and using his techniques that he uses in his films, that may have been distracting to a point where I wasn't very happy.
We don't want to make you unhappy.
No, we don't.
No, we don't. Okay. So let's, what else do you love about this film? Keep going.
I think I love the love story. I love the mystery of it. Watching it a second time, I did find I enjoyed it a little less than I did the first time. I actually knew there was a twist. I couldn't quite remember what the full twist was, but I kind of knew it was there, and I was trying to remember the pieces that were going to fall in place for me. When I got to the end, I found myself a little disappointed, and I'll talk about the specifics of that maybe a little later. But I think what I did love about it was this love story and this connection between Edward Norton's character Eisenheim, the magician, and Jessica Biel's character as Duchess Sophie von Teschen. There's something I really connected to with that, and I found it really touching and believable. And I that for me is what really made it a strong film.
I agree with you, and it's as much as I love Edward Norton generally, and we've talked about Fight Club is one of our very very favorites, and I love his performance in that film. I think he's very strong. We've talked obviously about the Bourne
Legacy,
the Bourne Triumphant, and his role there. And I think you were higher on him in that film than I was, but still very strong. The thing about him in this movie is I think he's the weakest point in this film. I certainly don't buy the accent. I find it distracting and inconsistent. I think he gets in the way of the people that I really want to watch, which are the other three. Paul Giamatti. To me, this is a Paul Giamatti film. I mean, I am most interested and intrigued by his dogged detective persona, and I think he has absolutely, even when his mouth, notoriously good when his mouth is full. He has the most consistent performance throughout, the most interesting, and is balanced perfectly by Rufus Sewell, who is a terrific, maniacal tyrant. Yeah, I mean he is terrific, and that he brings this fantastic bipolar kind of reactionary approach to his dealings with Eisenheim, and their kind of emotional duel when he invites Eisenheim to come to his home and do a private show to all of the best minds. You offer us tricks, I offer you enlightenment, which is the most noble, which is more noble. I mean, that's just a fantastic sequence where you really get to see him spin out of control in his head. And he portrays that absolutely beautifully. And it is a performance, I think, that is unmatched by Norton's Eisenheim in this film. That's not to say that it's not a good performance. I just find it, sort of distracting from the better ones. Jessica Biel isn't actually in the film all that much.
No, she's not.
But I would engage in trickery for Jessica in this film.
Yes, absolutely.
She's a delight. Let's just leave it at that.
She is. She definitely is. I've
seen Stealth 1,000 times. What? You were agreeing. You were agreeing with me. Let's go back to that.
What? I do agree with you. As much as I do enjoy the love story in this film, because that to me I really connect to, and maybe it's just the battle of the socioeconomic class between the two as they grow up, and they still want this love that is torn by this awful tyrant. But I do agree with you. I guess I don't really have a problem with Edward Norton in this film. He works fine for me. He's never really bothered me. His accent, I've always looked past. Paul Giamatti, you're right, though, is stellar in this film, as is Rufus Sewell. I find both of them very engaging to watch. I love seeing the scenes between those two. I love the interesting conversation that Giamatti's character, Inspector Uhl, has with Eisenheim about the nature of his relationship with the Crown Prince Leopold, played by Rufus Sewell, and how, even though it may seem like they're friends, they're really not, because there is this economic gulf between the two of them. And as close as Inspector Uhl is to the Crown Prince, he's never going to be at that level. And that was just his point about that he brought up a number of times. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the way that Paul Giamatti played that as a guy who struggled with this kind of economic difference between him and his employer, but was happily going along with it. As long as he was getting something out of it, and becoming maybe the the chief of police and eventually the mayor. I mean, those are great promises to have.
And to your point, I mean, those sequences, any of the sequences between Giamatti and Sewell, and the sequence that you're speaking of, when the "I am the son of a butcher" speech, I think were really expertly crafted. I mean, there was just a wonderful bit of screenwriting in there from Neil Berger, where we actually you see that sort of the dialogue turnabout here when you know that Eisenheim is trying to get him to say, you're under the wing of royalty, and there's this sort of trickery that he's trying to pull, this verbal trickery, and yet Inspector Uhl doesn't fall for it. It's like this is a sequence in which, knowing that otherwise he is absolutely intellectually overpowered by Eisenheim and as the magician, you don't get to play social politics with Inspector Uhl. He always knows where he came from.
Right.
And there is no trick there. And I thought that was just such a powerful sequence. I mean, you could just watch that again and again. That and the as the film plays out, the climax of the film when Inspector Uhl confronts and ultimately attempts to arrest the Crown Prince.
Right.
That sequence is equally powerful. Just language, I thought was, for me, those were two absolute highlights.
Absolutely. Even though this is going to be my point. Even though
was I interrupting my whole monologue was interrupting a point?
No,
yours?
No, absolutely not. No.
Oh, I would feel bad about that.
No. My point's going back to something I was going to say about the ending of the film, which is something that bothered me more the second time watching it than it did the first time. As the inspector of this city that they're living in, or villa, or whatever it is, I when we get to the end and the big reveal happens, which spoiler alert, even though it's 7 years old. We see how Eisenheim and Sophie had really planned this whole escape for quite a while, and they had figured out a way to essentially follow through on something that Uhl had said earlier about how the only way that the Crown Prince will let you two, or will stop chasing you two, is if you're both dead. And so he creates this whole elaborate trick that almost makes it seem like they're both dead. I mean, Sophie for sure. Eisenheim completely has disappeared. And then they essentially frame the Crown Prince for her murder, even though she's not dead. Now, the Crown Prince was a bastard. He was abusive. He was plotting to take over his father's throne. I mean, he's not a nice guy. But, and so, in a way, I guess I'm happy to see him go. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but now the chief inspector is like laughing at the joy of this trick pulled by Eisenheim over everybody, while this Crown Prince was wrongfully framed for murder and killed himself.
Well,
maybe I'm making too big of a deal out of it.
Okay, no, I'm gonna try and ease your burden.
Okay, thank you, because it is a burden.
He wasn't laughing until, he wasn't laughing.
Uhl at the train station when he catches on to what's going on.
Right. that was, am I wrong? Because this is another one of those films where the editing is really important. Editing from Naomi Garrity.
It becomes a very Usual Suspects type of montage at the end.
Very much so. Now, was the laughing at the train station? Are you dead sure that it was after the assassination, or after the not assassination, after the suicide?
Yeah,
I thought it was right before.
The train station. No, because that's like right at the end of the film, right? He follows him to the train station, has his giggles as he realizes what happened.
Right, and then he goes to see the prince.
No, and then we cut to the two of them at their cabin up in the mountains. And that's the end of the film.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I may give that to you, but here's the thing, that this is why I buy it. Because throughout the film we have these cues that Walter Uhl is on the side of Eisenheim, right?
Sure.
He says a number of times throughout the film, I am not completely corrupt. That's why I'm telling you, please don't do what you're doing, right? I am here as their first meeting together in the backstage at the theater. Their first meeting when he does the trick with the hand against the forehead. The subtext in that film to me is so clear that they are on the same side, and Paul Giamatti is simply trying to, or Uhl's role in this is simply trying to grease the skids between the performer and a very finicky audience member, right? But ultimately, his allegiance, Uhl's allegiance, is with the proletariat, right? It's with the people it's with the people, it's with the sons of the butchers, and
even the murderers. Or the ones who frame people for murder.
No, I don't think so, because I don't think that my impression is that Uhl was fine with him killing himself. I don't think he had any allegiance beyond riding the coattails for political gain, right? I mean, he was not. He was no dummy.
Well, he was happy to do that.
Yeah.
As long as Leopold, the crown prince, wasn't a horribly awful guy.
And he was a horribly awful guy.
But he wasn't a murderer. And that's what I'm saying.
But he was a murderer. We already knew that he had the rumors were already swirling that he had killed others in the past and dropped their bodies off to prevent them from coming clean.
I think a body, right?
I think he was a mass murderer, and it was many many bodies.
I think he was Jack the Ripper.
I think he was. You see my point, though. I feel like I guess my argument is I think they made enough of a case.
Well, they did,
to me.
Yes,
that it doesn't make Uhl, because the way you put it makes Uhl the sociopath, and I don't think he was.
No, I'm just saying it's for the police chief it's like he should be realizing that the wool was pulled over his eyes.
Yes,
the wool was pulled over Uhl's eyes.
Was it the wool over Uhl?
It was the Uhl wool.
It was the Uhl wool. Wool.
And instead of just giggling at the train station about it, he should have gone, that son of a monkey, I am going to go arrest him.
Yes. Okay.
I'm making too big of a deal of it. It really is a minor plot point. But it was just one of those things that I'm just like, well, come on. I know the crown prince was a horrible guy, but now these two are framing him for murder just so they can get away and be together. And the inspector is totally okay with it.
Well, because the inspector, there was no, it's not as though they, I see your point. They did frame him for murder in order to get away, right? That's right.
He killed himself because he was framed for murder.
But he did not kill himself, but there was no way for anyone else to know that he was going to kill himself. It's not like they made him kill himself.
Right.
He was not stable.
So here's a question for you. Completely speculative. If the crown prince did not kill himself, we're just some strange tangent here. If the crown prince had not killed himself, but Inspector Uhl had instead arrested him, and then he went to the train station and realized that Eisenheim and Sophie had pulled the Uhl wool over his eyes, would he then have freed the crown prince because he wasn't actually guilty?
Well, that is a great question. Man, I think he probably would have, because he also was not, it's okay that he doesn't have to feel bad about the fact that this tyrant has actually killed himself.
Right.
And even when he kills himself, you notice his position over the body is he's kind of relaxed, and it's like that. The crown prince has killed himself.
Right.
Oh shucks.
Oh well.
Who's next? But I also think that he was a functionary, right? And that means his role was to observe and apply the law accordingly, right?
Sure.
And so I think if he observes that the facts are different than those that he was otherwise made aware, he would have freed the crown prince.
Yeah.
And now whether or not he would have as doggedly pursued Eisenheim and Sophie, I think that's a different question.
I don't think he would.
I don't think he would have. He is the son of a butcher. He's got to be true to his character.
That's right.
Oh, that was that's good. Okay. Then, and this is, I don't know, here I'm looking at the poster, and I think the poster is so deceiving, since the movie for me is really about Paul Giamatti. And in fact, there are no crystal balls in this thing at all. What's Edward Norton holding a crystal ball all lit up? What do you think of the magic?
I like the magic. I think it's fun. It's one of those magic films where, I'm always torn watching films with people performing magic, going, okay, are they really performing magic? And, a magician actually trained the actor how to do it? Or is it pure digital fabrication on the part of the filmmakers so that they can make something look really super cool? To me, and I know you've done more research than I have on this, but to me, it seems like most of these tricks in this film are CG.
It does seem that way.
Yes.
And this is where I am frustrated by this film.
Okay.
So the ball tricks, the throwing of the orange tricks, any of the hand tricks, those tricks, they, according to, what I have read on multiple sources, that there were three key trainers of magic who stepped in: James Friedman, Ricky Jay, our friend Ricky Jay, Michael Weber, and Scott Penrose. Actually, so four, magic consultants. James Friedman did the vast majority of the hands-on close-up magic training for both Eisenheim the Edward Norton and Eisenheim the Young, played by Aaron Johnson. And so, but those tricks, and particularly Aaron Johnson, I mean, all the little ball sleight of hand things that he was doing, those things, were apparently those were real practical close magic sleight of hand tricks. But then you get to the I would say the tentpole tricks, right? The big one in this film in particular is the orange tree. And the orange tree gets to my first frustration.
Okay.
So the orange tree. The orange tree, they bring out this planter. And after Eisenheim does this fancy speech about time and slowing time and speeding time, he cuts open an orange, a real orange, and he takes out the seed, and he places the seed into this planter, and then holds his hand over the planter, and out from the, fresh soil sprouts a plant. And over the course of about 30 seconds, it grows into a fruiting tree. So the flowers, the blooms, orange blooms, and then real orange fruit comes off of the tree. He plucks the oranges and tosses them out into the audience for audience members to inspect. And then from above the tree, two butterflies carrying a handkerchief that he had stolen from one of the audience members earlier on.
I don't think it's called stealing. Is that what it was? It's
so this
reappeared.
It reappeared, carried on the wings of butterflies over the tree of the audience.
That's right.
So this trick is this particular illusion was, I would say up until the point that he plucks the oranges from the tree, it was a CG trick.
Yeah, that's what it looked like to me.
Right. So it turns out this is a real thing, right? Did you know this?
Which doesn't make any sense to me. I guess is why it's magic.
I just dropped a magical knowledge bomb on you. This was a real thing of the time, right? Wrap your head around that.
I don't understand how the fruit could pop out like that.
This was conceived of by a magician by the name of Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin.
Wow, that was good.
Right? He's a French magician. He lived from 1805 to 1871. And according to magicians of the late 1800s and early 1900s, this guy owned the universe because of tricks like the marvelous orange tree.
Wow.
And the marvelous orange tree, here's what's so frustrating about it. So there are boatloads of links on YouTube if you want to actually see this thing done. And I am not linking them in the show notes because for those of you who want to watch this trick and not see how it's done, I encourage you to do that. But this is a real thing. The thing that I think the trick counts on is that the practical trick is with an orange tree in a planter.
Right.
It is not done from seed.
Mm.
Right. So what is presented on stage when Robert Houdin did it is it's wheeled out on stage. It's a planter with the tree already formed.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? And then, out like magic, these blooms start appearing on it, and then oranges start dropping in this tree on stage, and he plucks them, and they're real oranges. And then butterflies come out from behind the tree carrying the handkerchief that he had stolen earlier. So there's a lot that I feel like we don't know about the trick, and I say we meaning you and me. Obviously there are a lot of people who do know, and you can see the actual mechanics of how the tree works if you choose to search for it. The trick is the marvelous orange tree. It was developed by Robert Houdin. It was made much more famous by Houdini, who actually took his name as an homage to Robert Houdin.
Oh,
right.
Very interesting.
Fascinating.
I'm learning all sorts of interesting magic things.
I'm telling you, man, I have been obsessed by this stuff. And this is what's so frustrating about it. This is a movie that purports to use such rigorous practical magic techniques of the time. Mm-hmm. And then they make this interesting choice to embellish them with CG in a way that I think was unnecessary.
Right.
Right. I don't necessarily mean embellishing CG like with maybe the butterflies or, whatever. In this case, they embellished by bringing the plant to grow from seed. And it makes, I have been really struggling with my impression of what that does to the character of Eisenheim, the illusionist, right? Because it could say one of two things. One, that in fact, Eisenheim was conjuring something from another plane, that he actually had power beyond practical magic.
Right. Well, he did meet a man who disappeared the tree too. So
yes, right. There's that, and then the following tricks, conjuring up the ghosts.
Yep.
Those are well written tricks about how to actually conjure using mirrors, and those things you can find as well on the magical YouTube. You can see how those tricks are done and how Eisenheim would have done those. So there's very practical until you get that extra layer of CG trickery that takes it to the next level for the film. And so I am torn with, and I'll tell you, I'm torn because I don't know if I need that in this character. This character is so sort of, he's kind of a sidebar to the story at hand, which is the love story. I didn't need the embellishment of the magic because the magic was fantastic on its own.
Yeah, that's interesting. It does speak to what level of trickery did we need to make the film succeed. I mean, it gets to a point where we're watching ghost children walk down the aisle who had apparently been outside and people had seen him walking into the theater. People put their hands through him. He's not there. It's like, to me, the trickery is done at such a level that the only way it makes sense is that he actually does have some power from the great beyond.
Right.
And I don't know if that is really the right tone to have created in this film, particularly because of the way the ending plays out, where we realize that it's all a big trick.
And it was a big trick. It was a big practical trick, right?
Yeah.
It was a trick where every step of the trick can be explained by practical means, and that's what makes the punchline of the film, the resolution of the film, so satisfying if you've been paying attention, because you can puzzle it through, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
The Usual Suspect. That's where The Usual Suspect succeeds, is that if you watch it 1,000 times, you can puzzle it through. And
Right.
this movie, there's enough of the embellishments, the CG embellishments to the magic that makes you question your own ability to puzzle it through.
Yeah.
That's where I feel like it's sort of a letdown. It's the same sensation I get from those who don't like The Prestige, that failure of expectations
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like I'm experiencing with The Illusionist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's my whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting point that you bring up, and it's one that, will make me rethink my opinions of the film. I mean, even despite the crazy framing theory that I have now. But aside from that, this nature of the magical element of the film, is it really helping the film out or not? I don't know. I may like it a little less now.
Well, I think it's you're very welcome. With all kindnesses. It is the thing that apart from everything else, because I so deeply appreciate what Rufus Sewell and Paul Giamatti and to a lesser extent the other two yahoos in this film, to what they deliver in this movie, and what Neil Berger did with this movie, I think is I think it's great. I like this movie. I like it actually more than I did when I started watching it this week. My memory of it was less. That happens pretty rarely on this show, right?
Yeah, right.
I actually appreciate it more, but I find the things that trouble me about it are different than the things that used to trouble me about it. And so, now I wonder how much we need him to be a spiritual kind of sorcerer,
right?
It comes at a disservice to this movie that has otherwise made a promise of practicality.
Yeah.
That's my pitch.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So you want to talk about, do you have other things, or should we talk about numbers and stuff?
Just one last thing. Eddie Marsan is in this. He's an actor who I always enjoy, even though I'm always slightly creeped out by him. And I think it's because
manager.
Yeah, he's the manager.
Yeah.
I think it's because of his role in Happy Go Lucky, where he had some of the worst teeth I've ever seen. And I couldn't like him, and now I always think about his teeth when I see him. So as much as I love him, because he's been in just about everything. I mean, he's a very, very popular actor, kind of these character actors in England that ends up in everything. A fantastic guy. But yeah, I always think about his bad teeth now when I see him. I don't know if that's the direction I want to go with him when I see him.
That's too bad, because he's such a charming little man in this film.
He is in every film he's been in, except for Happy Go Lucky.
I want to say before we move on to the numbers real quick, I forgot the music is done by Philip Glass.
That was my next thing. Yeah.
If this isn't one of the top scores, certainly of 2006 magic films, I think it's. Then I think that's a real mistake. I adore the music in this film.
I do too, and Philip Glass is one of those composers who. Some people say he's a minimalist. He says that he is a composer of music with repetitive structures. I think that defines him really well, because I don't find anything minimal about his music. I find it lush and just full. Can I say maximal? I don't know if I should, but I'm going to say it's maximal music. I love the structures. I love the repetitiveness of it. I love listening to his scores. And I mean, he's been a composer on and off for a very long time. He started scoring films. I believe his first film was the Cozzi film, the
Koyaanisqatsi.
Yeah. I think that was his first film, and since then he has been just writing a wide variety of projects, a number of which are films. And I find his film music just wonderful to listen to. His score for Martin Scorsese's, I'm just blanking on the name of it right now. Why am I forgetting the name of it? The Dalai Lama film, Kundun.
Oh, yeah.
I just find that score one of his most powerful scores. And The Fog of War. He did new score for the 1931 film Dracula. That's a beautiful score. The Hours, Notes on a Scandal, just fantastic music all the time. And in this film, it really, and maybe again, it helps me feel that lushness with the look of the film and why I'm so attached to the way this film looks. But his lush music really feels right for the time and this story, and the way that the film looks paired with the music, I feel just it's like a two great tastes that taste great together.
I was just going to say all of that. I can't leave out Errol Morris's The Thin Blue Line.
That's right.
Which is one of my favorites. And that's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about money. Did pretty well.
It did pretty well for itself. This film, as one of the so far two films that we've talked about in 2006, was made for less money. It had a $16.5 million budget with production or a P&A budget of 13.5, so total budget of $30 million. And domestically, it grossed almost $40 million, and internationally about $44 million. So it made its money back handsomely. And as a film that's only 109 minutes long, it made more money per finished minute than The Prestige did, which actually made more money all told. But because it's a 130-minute film, The Illusionist made almost $500,000 per finished minute. The Prestige only about $328,000 per finished minute.
So where does that put those relatively?
On our list of films, The Illusionist is number 27 and The Prestige is number 38.
Fantastic.
Nothing has yet to crack Indiana Jones and the Kingdom
of the Crystal Skull.
Sad to say.
All right. So the film, it did pretty well, and it's worth checking out. I think this movie.
I mean, it's a very enjoyable watch.
Yeah.
It really is. It's very easy to get into it and to just to go along with the ride the whole time. If you just don't think about the things that Pete and I brought up as far as the framing at the end and the fake magic or the CG magic that was unnecessary. I'm sure that you'll have a great time watching it.
I think so, and it's a good period film. Also, if you can get past the awkward vignetting, so it's got some thorns.
It does. Every rose has its thorn.
See, there you go. That's good. Carried by butterflies.
That's right.
Where are we going from here? So we're doing our crossover. That's this weekend.
This weekend is our crossover, our magician heist film, Now You See Me. And then next week, we're jumping to another 2006 heist film, Woody Allen's Scoop.
Which is ironically inclusive of two other stars from The Prestige.
Right. Hugh Jackman and Scarlett Johansson.
Not only did Hollywood come at us with 3 stage magic movies in 2006, 2 of the 3 of them include 2 of the same stars.
Yeah, crazy. And neither of us have seen it, so it'll be interesting to watch it and see what we report.
But
we felt because of it almost was an obligation to do this film because of the tie-in to the 2006 Magician series.
I can't believe I honestly I had never even heard of this film. This came and went so fast, and I actually I think I like Woody Allen more than you do. Right?
I'm an on and off Woody Allen guy.
Yeah. I'm actually I consider myself a fan of Woody Allen, and I had never heard of this film. It just was there, and maybe it never came to my city.
It definitely slipped under the rug for me.
Absolutely. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it and adding it to the collection. And so we're going to roll the dice on this one.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Well, let's flick chart The Illusionist before
let's
we
do
say
it.
goodbye. All right, The Illusionist or The Sandlot?
I'm going to say The Sandlot.
I am too. Hercules und the Wunderkind. I'll just never get over that. The Illusionist or Clute?
Interesting choice.
I am going to go with The Illusionist. I think it's Clute is a dark film, and it's a more dated film, I think, and I think I would enjoy watching The Illusionist more, even with its thorns.
Yeah, I agree.
The Illusionist or The Dark Knight Rises? I'm totally going with The Illusionist.
The Illusionist.
Totally.
I'm going to say The Illusionist only because I'm so tired of arguing with you about that.
This will be our final reckoning.
You do that really well. The Illusionist or 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later.
Totally. All right, number 51.
And where did Prestige come up on our list? That was like 38? 28, somewhere in there? Wasn't it better than that?
You're going to make me dig. Hold on. Number 14, actually.
Oh, yeah, I know. We like that a lot.
It was up to, yeah, we did like that one quite a bit.
We're cruising up to the golden 100.
Yes, we are.
Every week.
Hit it sooner than we think.
Awesome. Hey, good chat.
Absolutely. The last thing I have to say is get her done.
Get her done.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.